The Crimson Portal. Chapter 1, First Contact. The year was 3456, and Earth had never been more beautiful or more fortified. Crystalline spires pierced the azure sky above Neo Geneva, their surfaces gleaming with the soft blue glow of quantum energy. Dr. Elena Vasquez adjusted her neural interface headset and gazed out at the sprawling metropolis below from her laboratory perched atop the International Defense Observatory. "Status report, Arya," she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades studying the vast emptiness between stars. The AI's response materialized as a holographic display, its feminine voice synthesized to perfection. "No anomalous readings detected in sectors 1 through 847, Dr. Vasquez. Deep space monitoring arrays remain." The display flickered, then exploded into a cascade of warning symbols. Red alerts cascaded across every surface in the laboratory as Arya's voice shifted to urgent tones. "Dr. Vasquez, I'm detecting massive gravitational distortions 2.3 astronomical units from Earth. The signature is unlike anything in our databases." Elena's heart skipped. In her 40 years of xenological research, she had cataloged every known phenomenon in their galactic neighborhood. "Show me the readings." The hologram shifted, revealing a three-dimensional representation of space around Earth. At the edge of the solar system, reality itself seemed to be folding inward, creating a spiraling vortex of energy that defied conventional physics. "It's artificial," Elena whispered, her face pale. "Someone is opening a portal." Across the city, Commander Marcus Chen received the emergency transmission while reviewing tactical reports in the Earth Defense Force headquarters. His augmented reality display immediately shifted to priority mode, surrounding him with Elena's data streams. "Commander," came the voice of his tactical AI, "this appears to be First Contact Scenario Alpha 7. Recommend immediate escalation to Defense Council." Marcus ran his hand through his graying hair. At 55, he had seen humanity survive 3 major asteroid impacts, 2 AI rebellions, and countless smaller crises. But this was different. This was the moment every strategist had prepared for but hoped would never come. "Get me Admiral Zhang," he ordered. "And activate the Prometheus protocol." The portal stabilized 3 hours later. Through Earth's most powerful telescopes, they could see it clearly now, a swirling crimson gateway hanging in the void like a wound in space itself. And then, something emerged. The first Orc ship was massive, easily the size of a small moon. Its hull was a patchwork of blackened metal and bone-like protrusions that seemed to pulse with malevolent life. Behind it came another, then another, until a fleet of dozens hung in space like predatory titans. "My God," whispered Dr. Sarah Kim, the lead xenobiologist, as she studied the initial scans. "The biosignatures, these things are huge. Individual life forms showing up as 12 to 15 feet tall, mass approximately 400 to 500 kilograms each." Admiral Zhang's weathered face remained impassive as the data flowed across her command center. "How many ships?" 47 confirmed, Admiral, reported Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. "And they're still coming through." The first communication attempt came 18 hours after the portal opened. The translation algorithms struggled with the guttural, aggressive language, but the meaning was clear enough. "People of the small world," the message began, the words transmitted on every frequency simultaneously. "I am Warchief Gordhak the Bonecrusher, commander of the Horde of Khaz Modin. Your world is now property of the Orcish clans. Surrender and serve, or be ground to dust beneath our boots." The holographic projection that accompanied the message showed the Orc leader in all his terrible glory. Gordhak stood nearly 14 feet tall, his muscled frame covered in scars and ritual tattoos. Tusks jutted from his lower jaw, and his eyes burned with an intelligence that was somehow more terrifying than mere brutality. "Your technology is advanced, for weaklings," Gordhak continued, gesturing dismissively. "But you have never faced the might of the Ironhide clan, the Blood Axe tribe, or the Shadowmoon Warband. We have conquered 17 worlds. Yours will be the 18th. Admiral Zhang cut the transmission and turned to her assembled staff. The war room was silent except for the hum of quantum processors and the distant thrum of the city's shield generators powering up. "Assessment?" she asked. Commander Chen stepped forward. "Their ships are massive, but they appear to be using some form of biotechnology we don't understand. Initial scans show they're heavily armed, but their approach patterns suggest they're not familiar with our defensive capabilities." Dr. Vasquez's image flickered into the room via hologram from her laboratory. "Admiral, I've been analyzing their portal technology. It's incredibly sophisticated, they're manipulating spacetime on a scale we can barely comprehend. But there's something else. The energy readings suggest this portal is bidirectional and potentially unstable." "Meaning?" "Meaning we might be able to turn their own technology against them. If we can destabilize the portal at the right moment, we could trap their fleet on this side of the galaxy," Admiral Zhang finished. "Or potentially destroy it entirely. What would we need?" "Time, Admiral. And a way to get close to the portal without being detected." Chapter 2, The War Begins. The first battle commenced at dawn on March 15, 3456. The Orcs had spent 3 days positioning their fleet in a massive formation that blotted out the stars. Their ships moved with surprising grace for such massive vessels, covered in what appeared to be living armor that shifted and adapted to incoming fire. Captain Lisa Rodriguez piloted her Valkyrie-class interceptor through the debris field that had once been the outer defensive satellites. Her squadron of 12 fighters was all that remained of the initial wave sent to test the Orc defenses. "Tiger Base, this is Viper Squadron," she reported, her voice tight with concentration as she dodged a blast of searing energy from an Orc heavy cruiser. "Enemy weapons are some kind of plasma-based system. They're slow to track but devastating on impact. Viper 7 and Viper 11 are gone." The response crackled through her comm. "Copy, Viper Leader. Fall back to defensive line Beta. Missile frigates are moving into position." Lisa banked hard to starboard, her fighter's neural link translating her thoughts into movement. Behind her, space lit up as Earth's defensive fleet engaged the Orc advance guard. The human ships were smaller, faster, and more maneuverable, but the Orcs had sheer mass and firepower on their side. On the Orc flagship Gorhowl, War Chief Gordhak watched the battle unfold with growing interest. The humans fought better than expected, their ships moved like schools of fish, coordinated and precise. But they were still just insects before the might of the Horde. "War Chief," rumbled his second-in-command, a massive Orc named Thok Ironhide, "their weapons barely scratch our hulls. Perhaps we should accelerate the assault." Gordhak's lips curled in what might have been a smile. "Patience, Thok. Let them expend their fury. Then we will show them what true power looks like." The battle raged for 6 hours. Humanity's defensive fleet fought with desperate courage, using hit-and-run tactics and coordinated strikes to whittle away at the Orc forces. But for every Orc ship damaged, 2 human vessels were reduced to glowing debris. Admiral Zhang watched the tactical display with growing concern. They were losing, slowly but surely. The Orc ships seemed to repair themselves even as they fought, their biomechanical hulls sealing breaches and regenerating armor plating. "Admiral," called out Dr. Kim from her station, "I'm detecting some kind of symbiotic relationship between the Orcs and their ships. The vessels aren't just constructed, they're grown, cultivated. The Orcs aren't just pilots, they're symbionts." "That explains the regeneration," Commander Chen observed. "But it also gives us a potential weakness. If the ships are alive, they might be vulnerable to biological warfare." "Biological weapons are banned under the Geneva Accords of 2847, Admiral Zhang replied firmly. "Admiral, with respect," Chen said, "those accords were written for human-on-human conflict. We're facing extinction." Before Zhang could respond, alarms blared throughout the command center. On the main display, the Orc fleet was moving again, but not toward Earth. Instead, they were spreading out, surrounding the planet in a vast sphere of ships. "They're not trying to destroy us," Dr. Vasquez's voice came through the comm from her laboratory. "They want to capture us intact. The planet, the population, everything." Gordhak's voice boomed across all frequencies again, "People of Earth. You have fought well, for weaklings. But the time for games is over. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Resist further, and we will take what we need from your charred bones. On the surface, panic gripped the major cities as people watched the alien fleet through the planet's massive viewing screens. In Neo Geneva, crowds gathered in the central plaza, their faces turned skyward in a mixture of fear and defiance. But in the depths of the Defense Force bunkers, a different kind of energy was building. Dr. Vasquez worked feverishly at her quantum computers, analyzing the portal's energy signature. She had found something, a pattern in the dimensional distortions that suggested a critical weakness. "Admiral," she called out over the comm, her voice electric with discovery, "I think I know how to stop them." Chapter 3, The Counterstrike. The plan was insane, brilliant, and possibly suicidal all at once. Dr. Vasquez had discovered that the portal operated on a quantum entanglement principle. It was simultaneously connected to both the Orc homeworld and Earth's dimensional space. If they could introduce a specific type of quantum virus into the portal's matrix, it would propagate back through the dimensional tunnel and destabilize the entire network. The problem, Elena explained to the assembled War Council, is that someone needs to get close enough to the portal to introduce the virus. We're talking about flying directly into the heart of their fleet. Captain Rodriguez leaned forward in her chair. How close? Within 500 meters of the portal's event horizon. You'd have to fly straight through their entire defensive formation. The room fell silent. Even with humanity's most advanced stealth technology, it would be a suicide mission. "I'll do it," Rodriguez said quietly. "Lisa, no," Commander Chen protested. "You're our best pilot, but this is exactly what I signed up for when I joined the Defense Force," she interrupted. "Besides, my Valkyrie has been modified with the new quantum phase generators. I can slip past their sensors, at least for a while." Admiral Zhang studied the tactical projections floating above the conference table. The Orc fleet had settled into a standard siege formation, their ships positioned to prevent any escape from Earth while bombardment vessels prepared for systematic destruction. "Even if Captain Rodriguez succeeds in reaching the portal," Zhang said slowly, "we still need to deal with the ships already on this side. 47 vessels, each capable of laying waste to entire continents." "That's where I come in," said a new voice from the chamber's entrance. All heads turned as Dr. Marcus Stein entered the room. The elderly scientist was head of the Special Weapons Division, a man whose gentle demeanor concealed one of the most brilliant and dangerous minds in human space. "Dr. Stein," Admiral Zhang acknowledged. "I trust you have something for us." "Project Mjolnir," he replied simply, causing several officers to shift uncomfortably in their seats. "We've been developing it for the past decade, hoping we'd never need to use it." "The planet killer," Chen whispered. "Marcus, you can't be serious." "Not planet killer," Stein corrected. "Ship killer. Mjolnir is a gravitational weapon that creates localized black holes. Small ones, very controlled, but sufficient to tear apart even the largest vessels." Dr. Vasquez looked up from her calculations. "How many shots do you have?" "One," Stein admitted. "The energy requirements are enormous. We'd have to draw power from the entire planetary grid, and it would take 6 hours to charge. After firing, Earth would be defenseless for at least 12 hours. One shot," Admiral Zhang mused. 47 targets. "The weapon creates a cascade effect," Stein explained. "If we can catch them in close formation, the gravitational distortions will chain react from ship to ship. But timing will be critical." Rodriguez was studying the tactical displays with the focused intensity of a born pilot. "I can give you that timing. If I can reach the portal and introduce Dr. Vasquez's virus, their ships will cluster together to defend the exit point. That's when you fire Mjolnir." "And that's when you die," Chen said bluntly. Rodriguez met his gaze steadily. "Maybe. But if it works, Earth survives. That's a trait I can live with. Or die with." The preparation took 18 hours. During that time, the Orc fleet maintained its siege positions while broadcasting increasingly threatening demands for surrender. But unknown to them, human determination was crystallizing into something harder than steel. Captain Rodriguez spent her final hours with the engineering teams, modifying her Valkyrie for the mission. The sleek fighter was stripped of all non-essential systems and equipped with the most advanced stealth generators humanity had ever built. Dr. Vasquez's quantum virus was loaded into a specialized delivery system that would activate automatically when the ship reached the portal. The stealth field will hold for maybe 20 minutes, Chief Engineer Patel explained as they made the final adjustments. After that, you'll be visible to every sensor in their fleet. 20 minutes, Rodriguez repeated. From the outer edge of their formation to the portal. It's doable. Meanwhile, Dr. Stein supervised the charging of Project Mjolnir from a heavily shielded bunker beneath the Swiss mountains. The weapon itself was a marvel of human engineering, a device that could compress space-time to the point where matter itself collapsed into temporary singularities. Gravitational lensing is stable, reported his assistant, Dr. Park. Power levels at 40% and climbing. We'll be ready to fire in 4 hours. On the Orc flagship, War Chief Gordhak was growing impatient. The humans had ceased their futile attacks and seemed to be hunkering down for a siege. It was disappointing, he had hoped for more fight from them. War Chief, Thok Ironhide approached his commander's throne. Perhaps we should begin the bombardment. Reduce a few cities to ash, show them we mean business. Gordhak considered this, his massive hands drumming against the bone armrests of his chair. No. Not yet. Something feels wrong. The humans are too quiet. His tactical officer, a scarred orc named Grashk, looked up from his station. Our sensors detect no significant military activity, War Chief. They appear to be in full retreat. Humans don't retreat when cornered, Gordhak growled. They get desperate. And desperate prey is the most dangerous kind. As if summoned by his words, alerts began chiming throughout the Orc bridge. A small object had appeared on their sensors, something fast and stealthy, moving toward their formation. Intercept course? Asked Thok. Gordhak's eyes narrowed as he studied the sensor readings. Let it come. I want to see what they're up to. Chapter 4, Through the Fire. Captain Rodriguez felt her heart hammering against her ribs as her Valkyrie slipped through the void between the massive Orc vessels. The stealth field bent light and sensor waves around her ship, making her nearly invisible, but she could feel the weight of alien eyes searching for her. 12 minutes to portal, she whispered into her comm, knowing that Earth was monitoring her progress. Stealth field holding steady. The Orc ships were even more terrifying up close. Their biomechanical hulls pulsed with veins of energy, and she could see smaller creatures, some kind of maintenance drones, crawling across their surfaces like parasites. Gun ports the size of subway tunnels tracked back and forth, searching for threats. One of the heavy cruisers suddenly shifted course, moving directly into her path. Rodriguez held her breath as her ship's computer adjusted trajectory automatically, sliding her fighter through a gap barely wider than her wingspan. 8 minutes, she reported, sweat beading on her forehead despite the ship's climate controls. On Earth, the assembled command staff watched her progress on the main tactical display. Each second felt like an hour as the tiny blip representing Rodriguez's fighter crept toward the massive portal signature. Mjolnir is at 90% charge, Dr. Stein reported. We'll be ready to fire when she reaches the portal. Admiral Zhang nodded grimly. All fleet units, prepare for final engagement. When Captain Rodriguez completes her mission, we're going to have a very angry enemy to deal with. Rodriguez's ship suddenly shuddered as a scanning beam passed over her. For a heart-stopping moment, alarms wailed in her cockpit as the stealth field flickered. Come on, she whispered, manually adjusting the field generators. Hold together just a little longer. The stealth field stabilized, but she knew she was running out of time. The portal loomed ahead of her now, a massive tear in space that hurt to look at directly. Crimson energy swirled within its depths, and she could feel its gravitational pull tugging at her ship. 4 minutes to portal, she reported. Stealth field at 60% and falling. Behind her, she could see Orc fighters beginning to launch from their carrier ships. They hadn't spotted her yet, but they were clearly on high alert. "Rodriguez," came Admiral Zhang's voice over the comm, "you need to know, our sensors are picking up movement on the other side of the portal. More ships are coming through." Lisa's jaw tightened. "How many more?" "We count at least 30 additional vessels beginning transit. If we don't stop this now, we never will." The weight of that knowledge settled on her shoulders like a lead blanket. Not just Earth's survival, but the survival of human civilization itself, depended on the next few minutes. 2 minutes, she reported, her ship now racing at maximum speed toward the portal's event horizon. The crimson energies ahead grew brighter, and she could see the distortion effects as space-time itself bent around the portal's rim. Her instruments were going crazy, trying to make sense of readings that defied conventional physics. Then, disaster struck. "Rodriguez." Chen's voice crackled over the comm, "You've got company." She spared a glance at her rear sensors and felt her blood turn to ice. 3 Orc fighters were closing on her position, their weapons already charging. Somehow, they had detected her. "Stealth field is gone," she reported, throwing her ship into evasive maneuvers. "I'm visible to everyone now." The first plasma bolt seared past her port wing, close enough that she could feel the heat through her ship's hull. She rolled hard to starboard, diving toward the portal's lower edge while energy beams crisscrossed the space around her. 60 seconds to portal, she grunted, pulling GS that would have killed an unaugmented human. Her neural implants helped her maintain consciousness as the Valkyrie twisted through space like a falling leaf. On the Orc flagship, War Chief Gordhak realized what was happening and roared in fury. "All ships, protect the portal. Destroy that fighter." But it was too late. Rodriguez's ship punched through the final line of Orc defenders and plunged toward the portal's swirling heart. Her ship's computer began the automated sequence to deploy Dr. Vasquez's quantum virus. "Virus deployed," she reported, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. "Mjolnir, you are cleared to fire." On Earth, Dr. Stein's hand hovered over the firing control. "Mjolnir is charged and ready. All ships clear the target zone." Admiral Zhang took a deep breath. Fire. Chapter 5, The Fall of Giants. The gravitational weapon fired with no visible beam, no dramatic energy discharge, just a slight shimmer in space as fundamental forces were bent to humanity's will. Dr. Stein watched his instruments as the localized black hole formed at the center of the Orc fleet, exactly where his calculations had predicted. The effect was immediate and devastating. The first Orc ship to be caught in Mjolnir's field was the heavy cruiser Skullcrusher. Its massive hull simply crumpled inward like paper as gravity became a crushing fist. The biomechanical armor that had shrugged off human weapons offered no protection against the fundamental forces of the universe. Then the cascade began. As the Skullcrusher was torn apart, its gravitational field merged with the weapon's effect, creating a larger distortion. This caught 2 more ships, which added their mass to the growing singularity. Like dominoes falling, one by one the Orc vessels were drawn into the expanding gravitational anomaly. "It's working," breathed Dr. Park, watching the readings in amazement. "The cascade is propagating exactly as the models predicted." On the Orc flagship, chaos reigned. War Chief Gordhak bellowed orders as his mighty fleet was systematically destroyed by forces beyond his understanding. "All ships, emergency scatter protocol," he roared. "Get away from the gravity well." But it was too late for most of them. The biomechanical ships, for all their regenerative capabilities, were still bound by the laws of physics. 23 vessels were caught in the cascade, their hulls cracking and splitting as they were drawn into the artificial singularity. Captain Rodriguez, still alive but trapped near the portal's edge, watched the destruction with grim satisfaction. Her ship was badly damaged from the Orc attack, but her mission was complete. The quantum virus was already propagating through the portal's matrix, and she could see the crimson energies beginning to fluctuate wildly. "Earth control," she transmitted, "the portal is destabilizing. Whatever was coming through from the other side is about to be cut off." Indeed, the massive portal was beginning to collapse in on itself. The new Orc ships that had been in transit were caught halfway through the dimensional tunnel, their forms stretching and distorting as space-time reasserted its normal configuration. War Chief Gordhak watched as reinforcements die in the collapsing portal and felt something he had never experienced before: defeat. His mighty horde, which had conquered 17 worlds, was being systematically destroyed by creatures he had dismissed as weak. War Chief Thok Ironhide approached, his massive frame bearing numerous wounds from flying debris. "We must retreat." "The portal." "I can see the portal." Gordhak snarled, backhanding his lieutenant across the bridge. "We came here to conquer, not to run like cowards." But even as he spoke, the portal collapsed completely with a flash of crimson light that briefly outshone the sun. The dimensional gateway that had taken the Orcs decades to construct was gone, leaving the surviving ships stranded in an alien star system. "Damage report," Gordhak demanded. Grashk looked up from his station, his scarred face grim. 23 ships lost to the gravity weapon. The portal is completely destroyed. We have 24 vessels remaining. From a fleet of 47 mighty warships, only half remained. And Gordhak could see human ships beginning to converge on their position, smaller vessels, but fast and numerous. On Earth, Admiral Jean allowed herself a moment of fierce satisfaction as she watched the tactical display update. The impossible had happened. Humanity had not only survived first contact with a hostile alien species, but had dealt them a crippling blow. "Status on Captain Rodriguez?" she asked. Commander Chen checked the sensor feeds. "Her ship is badly damaged but intact. She's requesting recovery assistance." "Send the Aurora to pick her up," Zhang ordered. "That woman deserves a hero's welcome." Dr. Vasquez's voice came through the comm from her laboratory. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy buildups from the surviving Orc ships. I think they're preparing to resume the attack." Zhang studied the tactical display. 24 Orc ships was still a formidable force, more than enough to devastate Earth's remaining defenses. But something had changed. She could sense it in the way the alien vessels were positioning themselves. "They're not arranging for attack," she realized. "They're forming a defensive formation. They're scared." Chapter 6: The Reckoning. The standoff lasted for 3 days. The surviving Orc fleet held position at the edge of Earth's solar system while humanity's forces maintained a cautious distance. Both sides seemed to be reassessing their opponent and their options. In the Orc fleet, War Chief Gordhak faced the most difficult decision of his military career. His ships were stranded, his portal was destroyed, and the humans had proven to be far more dangerous than anticipated. But surrender was not in his vocabulary. "The human ships are moving," reported Grashk from his sensor station. "They're not attacking, it looks like they're trying to establish communication." Gordhak's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, communication?" "They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. The translation matrix is having trouble with their language, but I think they want to talk." On the bridge of the human flagship Olympus, Admiral Jean was indeed attempting to establish diplomatic contact. It went against every instinct she had developed over decades of military service, but the tactical situation demanded it. "Open a channel," she ordered. Dr. Vasquez, who had been working on improving their translation algorithms, nodded. "Channel open, Admiral. Their translation systems appear to be more sophisticated than ours. They should be able to understand us." Zhang took a deep breath and addressed the alien fleet. "This is Admiral Zhang of the Earth Defense Force. I am speaking directly to the Orc commander. Your attack on our world has failed. Your fleet is stranded and outnumbered. I offer you one chance to discuss terms." The response came faster than expected. Gordhak's image appeared on the main view screen, and even through the translation barriers, his fury was unmistakable. "I am War Chief Gordhak the Bonecrusher, and I do not discuss terms with prey. Your victory is temporary, human. We are Orcs of the Ironhide clan, and we do not yield." "Then you will die here, far from home," Zhang replied calmly. "Your choice." For a moment, the channel was silent. Then, surprisingly, Gordhak laughed, a sound like grinding stone. You fight well, Admiral Jean. Better than any species we have encountered. But you do not understand what you face. The horde is vast beyond your comprehension. Even without the portal, others will come. Perhaps, Jean acknowledged. But they'll find us ready. What happened next surprised everyone on both sides. Thok Ironhide stepped forward on the Orc bridge, his massive frame dwarfing even his war chief. Gordhak, he said, using the common tongue so the humans could understand, perhaps the time has come to consider alternatives. The war chief spun on his lieutenant, his hand moving to his weapon. You dare suggest? I suggest survival, Thok interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. We came here expecting easy conquest. Instead, we found warriors. Perhaps there is honor in recognizing worthy opponents. The concept seemed to give Gordhak pause. In Orc culture, honor was everything, and there were few things more honorable than acknowledging a worthy enemy. Dr. Kim, monitoring the exchange from Earth, looked up with sudden insight. Admiral, I don't think this is just about military defeat. Their culture appears to be built around concepts of honor and strength. We didn't just beat them, we impressed them. Jean considered this. Are you suggesting they might be willing to negotiate? I'm suggesting they might respect us enough to listen. Taking a calculated risk, Jean addressed Gordhak directly. War Chief, you speak of honor. Is there honor in leading your remaining warriors to certain death for no purpose? Your mission has failed. Your portal is destroyed. But your people, your warriors, they could still live. Gordhak's tusked face twisted with conflicting emotions. Everything in his nature screamed for continued battle, for death before dishonor. But Thok was right, there was no victory to be won here, only meaningless slaughter. What terms would you offer? He asked finally, each word seeming to cost him. Sanctuary, Jean replied immediately. Your ships are damaged and stranded. We offer repair facilities and a place to settle on one of our outer colonies. In exchange, you share your technology and agree to help defend the system against future threats. You would trust Orcs? After we attacked you? I would trust warriors who fight with honor, Jean replied. And perhaps, in time, we might become allies instead of enemies. The proposal sent shockwaves through both fleets. Human crews muttered uncertainly about trusting their attackers, while Orc warriors struggled with the concept of serving alongside their former prey. But Captain Rodriguez, freshly recovered from her damaged fighter, had a different perspective. Admiral, she said over the comm from the medical bay, I got close enough to see their ships, their technology. If we can learn from each other, combine our strengths, we could build something incredible. Chapter 7, New Beginnings. The integration process was neither quick nor easy. It took 6 months to establish the first joint settlement on Proxima Centauri B, a world harsh enough to satisfy Orc sensibilities while still being habitable for humans. The cultural barriers seemed insurmountable at first. Orcs valued direct confrontation and physical strength, while humans prized cooperation and technological innovation. Dr. Sarah Kim found herself at the center of the integration effort, serving as chief xenobiologist and cultural liaison. Her first major breakthrough came when she realized that Orc aggression was actually a complex social system based on establishing and maintaining hierarchies through controlled conflict. They're not violent for the sake of violence, she explained to the Integration Council during one of their daily briefings. For Orcs, physical contests are how they determine leadership, resolve disputes, and even express friendship. It's no different than humans using debate or negotiation. The real breakthrough came when Captain Rodriguez challenged Thok Ironhide to a combat simulation. The massive Orc was initially dismissive. What could a small human teach him about warfare? But Rodriguez's tactical brilliance and innovative use of technology impressed him enough that he began seeking out more opportunities to learn from human military doctrine. Your people think differently than ours, Thok admitted to Rodriguez after a particularly intense training session. We see war as a test of individual strength. You see it as a symphony requiring coordination and intelligence. And you see survival challenges that would kill most humans, Rodriguez replied, nursing bruises from their sparring match. Your people's resilience and adaptability are incredible. If we can combine your physical capabilities with our technological advantages, we could defend this system against any threat," Thok finished. Meanwhile, Dr. Vasquez found herself working closely with Orc technomancers, their equivalent of scientists, who approached technology through a fusion of biological manipulation and quantum mechanics that humanity had never imagined. The Orcs grew their ships rather than building them, creating living vessels that could adapt and evolve in response to threats. "It's not just biotechnology," she explained to Admiral Zhang during one of their research reviews. "It's a completely different paradigm. They treat technology as a living ecosystem rather than a collection of tools." The first joint project was a defensive satellite network that combined human precision engineering with Orc adaptive biotech. The satellites could reconfigure themselves in real time, growing new sensor arrays or weapons systems as needed. But the greatest breakthrough came from an unexpected source, War Chief Gordhak himself. The former invader had initially struggled with his new role, finding it difficult to command warriors who were no longer following him into glorious battle. But gradually, he began to see the potential in this new alliance. "Admiral Zhang," he said during one of their regular strategy meetings, "my scouts report strange energy signatures from beyond the galactic rim. The patterns are familiar, portal technology, but not of Orc design." Zhang felt a chill run down her spine. "Another species with portal capabilities?" "The Devourer swarms," Gordhak confirmed grimly. "Silicon-based hive minds that consume entire star systems. They were the reason my people developed portal technology in the first place, to escape them. But if they have found portal technology of their own..." The implication hung heavy in the air. Humanity and the Orcs had barely survived their first encounter. What would happen when they faced an enemy that had driven the mighty Orc clans from their homes? "How long do we have?" Zhang asked. "Unknown. Could be months, could be years. But they are coming, Admiral. Of that, I am certain." Rodriguez, who had been listening from her position at the tactical display, stepped forward. "Then we'd better be ready for them." Chapter 8, The Swarm Approaches. 2 years after the first Orc-Human alliance was forged, the combined fleets of Earth and the Ironhide clans had grown into something unprecedented in galactic history. Human shipyards now produced hybrid vessels that merged sleek human engineering with Orc bioadaptation technology. These ships could heal damage during battle, grow new weapon systems as needed, and adapt to threats in real time. Captain Rodriguez, now Admiral Rodriguez, commanded the Unity, the first fully integrated human-Orc starship. Her crew was a mixture of both species, working together with an efficiency that would have seemed impossible just years before. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Kresh, a young Orc who had adapted remarkably well to human military protocols, "long-range sensors are detecting massive gravitational distortions in the Vega system." Rodriguez studied the readings with growing concern. The energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases, not the controlled dimensional manipulation of portal technology, but something far more chaotic and destructive. "Range to contact? If they maintain current course and speed, 6 months," reported Dr. Chen, Commander Chen's daughter, who had followed her father into the defense force. On the bridge of the Gorhal, now renamed Honor's Edge to reflect its new purpose, War Chief Gordhak received the same troubling reports. The old warrior had aged considerably in the past 2 years, but his eyes still burned with the fire of a true leader. "The Devourers move faster than expected," he growled to his assembled commanders. "They have learned much since driving us from our homeworlds." Admiral Zhang's holographic image flickered to life in the center of the bridge. "Gordhak, we need to coordinate our response. How much do you know about their capabilities?" "More than I wish, Admiral. The Devourers are not like us, they do not conquer, they consume. Every ship they destroy, every world they strip bare, becomes part of their growing mass. They are a living weapon that grows stronger with each victory." Dr. Vasquez joined the conference from her laboratory aboard the orbital research station. "We've been analyzing the sensor data from the Vega system. The gravitational distortions suggest they're using some kind of space-folding technology to move entire fleets instantaneously. Worse than that, Gordhack interrupted. They use the consumed matter from destroyed worlds to build new ships. Each system they devour makes them exponentially more powerful. The weight of this revelation settled over the assembled commanders. They weren't just facing an invasion, they were facing a force that became stronger with each victory, each consumed world adding to an ever-growing swarm. How do we fight something like that? Asked Admiral Rodriguez. By not letting them consume anything, Gordhack replied grimly. Every ship they destroy, every world they strip, makes them harder to defeat. We must stop them here, at the first engagement, or not at all. Dr. Kim, now serving as the chief xenobiologist for the Joint Fleet, looked up from her analysis. I've been studying the sensor readings. The Devourers appear to be silicon-based life forms, but their ships show signs of biological adaptation similar to Orc technology. They might be using consumed organic matter to enhance their vessels. That's actually encouraging, Dr. Vasquez said slowly. If they're incorporating biological elements, they might be vulnerable to the same kind of quantum virus we used against the portal. But on a much larger scale, Rodriguez added. We're not talking about disrupting a single portal, we're talking about creating a virus that could propagate through an entire swarm. The next months were a frenzy of preparation. Human and Orc engineers worked around the clock to upgrade the Joint Fleet, while scientists developed new weapons systems specifically designed to counter the Devourer threat. The quantum virus concept was expanded into something far more ambitious, a cascade weapon that could spread from ship to ship, turning the Devourer's own networking abilities against them. But as the enemy approached, it became clear that even their combined fleets might not be enough. Chapter 9, The Devourer Fleet. The first visual contact with the Devourer swarm came when they were still 3 months out from Earth. The images transmitted by long-range reconnaissance drones were unlike anything in human or Orc experience. The Devourer ships were massive organic constructs that seemed to writhe and pulse with malevolent life. They moved through space in perfect coordination, like a school of predatory fish, their hulls covered in what appeared to be harvesting appendages designed to strip matter from conquered worlds. But the most disturbing aspect was their sheer number. What had begun as reports of a single fleet had grown into something far worse, a swarm of thousands of ships, each one the size of a human city. My God, whispered Dr. Chen as she studied the reconnaissance data. There are so many of them. Admiral Zhang stood in the Joint Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the approaching threat. Human and Orc officers worked side by side, their earlier antagonism forgotten in the face of extinction. Analysis, she asked. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her station, her face pale. Based on the quantum signatures, each ship appears to be a collective organism. They're not just ships, they're living creatures that have evolved specifically for space combat and resource consumption. How do we kill something like that? Asked Commander Thok, who had been promoted to Joint Tactical Officer. We don't kill them, Gordhack said grimly. We starve them. Devourers require constant consumption to maintain their mass. If we can prevent them from feeding, they'll begin to consume themselves. That's the theory, Dr. Kim added. But in practice, it means we have to prevent them from consuming any matter at all, no ships, no asteroids, no space debris. Everything they encounter becomes part of their growing mass. The tactical challenge was enormous. The Devourer swarm was approaching from multiple vectors, using their space-folding technology to appear simultaneously throughout the outer solar system. They were too numerous to fight directly, too dispersed to hit with conventional weapons, and too adaptable to be stopped by any single strategy. We need to think differently, Admiral Rodriguez said, studying the tactical displays. They're expecting us to meet them in direct combat. What if we don't? What are you suggesting? Zhang asked. A fighting withdrawal. We make them chase us, stretch their formation, force them to expend energy moving through the system. Meanwhile, we seed their path with quantum mines and viral weapons. Gordhack nodded slowly. Use their own hunger against them. Make them consume poison bait. Exactly. But we'll need perfect coordination. One mistake, and they'll overwhelm us. The plan that emerged was audacious and desperate. the joint fleet would be divided into small, fast-moving groups that would harass the Devourer swarm while leading them through a carefully prepared gauntlet of weapons and traps. The goal wasn't to destroy them in direct combat, it was to weaken them enough that the final quantum cascade weapon could finish the job. But as the Devourers entered the outer solar system, it became clear that even this plan might not be enough. Chapter 10: The Battle for Humanity. The first contact with the Devourer swarm came at the asteroid belt. Admiral Rodriguez led a squadron of hybrid ships in a hit-and-run attack designed to test the enemy's capabilities and lure them into the prepared killing zone. Remember, she broadcast to her mixed human-orc crews, "We're not trying to win here. We're trying to learn and survive. Engage, gather data, and get out." The Devourer ships responded to the attack with frightening efficiency. Their organic hulls absorbed the energy from human weapons while their biomechanical systems adapted in real time to counter Orc technology. Within minutes, they had developed countermeasures for every weapon system in the Joint Fleet's arsenal. "They're learning," reported Lieutenant Kresh from his sensor station. "Their defensive adaptations are propagating through the entire swarm instantaneously." Rodriguez watched in horror as the enemy ships began to reconfigure themselves, growing new weapon systems and defensive structures even as they fought. "All units, fall back to Rally Point Alpha. We've seen enough." But the withdrawal was harder than expected. The Devourer ships were faster than anticipated, and their space-folding technology allowed them to appear directly in the path of fleeing human-orc vessels. The Courage, a human frigate with an Orc biohull, found itself surrounded by 3 Devourer ships. Captain Walsh, the vessel's human commander, knew there was no escape. "All hands, prepare for ramming speed," he ordered. "If we're going down, we're taking them with us." The Courage accelerated toward the nearest Devourer ship, its Orc biohull glowing with stored energy. The collision was spectacular, both ships disappeared in a brilliant flash of light and superheated plasma. But when the energy dissipated, the horror became clear. The Devourer ship was regenerating, its organic hull consuming the debris from the Courage to fuel its own repair systems. "They're not just adapting," Dr. Vasquez reported grimly from the command center. "They're feeding on our destroyed ships, using the matter to make themselves stronger." Admiral Zhang felt the weight of despair settling over the command center. Every ship they lost made the enemy stronger. Every weapon they used was quickly countered. How do you fight an enemy that turns your own strength against you? "Admiral," came Gordhak's voice over the comm, "I request permission to implement the Blood Axe Protocol." Zhang had heard of the Blood Axe Protocol, a desperate Orc military strategy that involved sacrificing entire fleets to achieve a tactical objective. "Gordhak, that's suicide." "Perhaps. But it may be our only chance. The Devourers expect us to fight for survival. They do not expect us to embrace glorious death." The old Warchief's plan was insane, brilliant, and heartbreaking all at once. Half the Joint Fleet would engage the Devourer swarm in direct combat, fighting to the last ship to keep them occupied. Meanwhile, the other half would circle around to the enemy's rear, carrying the quantum cascade weapon to the heart of the swarm. "It's not suicide," Admiral Rodriguez said quietly. "It's sacrifice. And it might just work." The Battle of the Inner System began at dawn on March 15, 3458, exactly 2 years after the first Orc invasion. But this time, human and Orc ships fought side by side against a common enemy. Gordhak led the assault personally, his flagship Honor's Edge charging directly into the heart of the Devourer formation. Around him, dozens of hybrid ships followed, their crews singing ancient Orc war songs and human battle hymns with equal fervor. "For Earth," shouted human voices. "For honor," roared Orc warriors. "For the future," they cried together. The sacrifice was terrible and beautiful. Ship after ship died gloriously, their crews fighting to the last breath while their quantum cascade weapons slowly weakened the Devourer swarm's collective consciousness. Meanwhile, Admiral Rodriguez led the flanking force through the outer system, their ships hidden behind the gas giant Jupiter as they approached the enemy's rear. The quantum cascade weapon, a device that could propagate through the Devourer's biological network, was their last hope. "Target acquired," reported Dr. Vasquez from the weapon control station. "The Cascade device is ready to deploy." Rodriguez looked at the tactical display, watching as Gordhak's ships died one by one in the distance. The old war chief was still fighting, still buying them time, but she could see that Honor's edge was badly damaged. "Fire," she ordered. The quantum cascade weapon activated silently, its effects invisible to human eyes but devastating to the Devourer swarm. The viral code propagated through their biological network, turning their greatest strength, their collective consciousness, into a fatal weakness. One by one, the Devourer ships began to convulse and die as the cascade weapons spread through their ranks. The organic holes that had seemed so invincible began to dissolve, their biomechanical systems consuming themselves in an endless feedback loop. "It's working," breathed Dr. Chen, watching the enemy formation collapse. "The cascade is spreading through the entire swarm." But victory came at a terrible cost. When the battle was over, less than a quarter of the joint fleet remained. War Chief Gordhak's Honor's edge was among the casualties, the old warrior having died as he had lived, fighting for honor and protecting those he considered worthy. Epilogue: A New Dawn. 5 years after the Devourer War, the joint colonies of humans and orcs had grown into something unprecedented in galactic history. The settlement on Proxima Centauri B was now a thriving city where children of both species played together in streets that bore names in both languages. Admiral Rodriguez, now serving as the first director of the Interspecies Defense Alliance, stood in her office overlooking the bustling spaceport. Through the windows, she could see the new generation of ships, sleek vessels that truly embodied the best of both human and orc technology. "Director," came a familiar voice from the doorway. She turned to see Thok Ironhide, now serving as her deputy director and wearing the uniform of the Joint Fleet with obvious pride. "What is it, Thok?" "Long-range sensors have detected something interesting. A signal from the Andromeda Galaxy. It appears to be a distress call." Rodriguez smiled. "From who?" "Unknown. But the translation algorithms suggest it might be from a species calling themselves the Ethereals. They claim to be under attack by something called the Void Collective." "Another threat?" "Or another opportunity," Thok replied. "The message includes technical specifications for their ships and weapons. They're asking for help, but they're also offering to share their technology with any species willing to aid them." Rodriguez looked out at the bustling spaceport, where human and orc engineers worked side by side on the next generation of hybrid vessels. The alliance that had been forged in desperation had grown into something beautiful, a partnership that made both species stronger than they could ever have been alone. "Prep the fleet," she said finally. "It looks like we're going to make some new friends." In the distance, the memorial to War Chief Gordhak the Bonecrusher caught the light of the alien sun. The inscription, written in both human script and orc runes, read simply, "He died as he lived, with honor, protecting those he loved." The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but humanity and their orc allies had learned the most important lesson of all: sometimes the greatest strength comes not from defeating your enemies, but from turning them into friends. And in the depths of space, new portals were opening, carrying the ships of the Interspecies Defense Alliance toward new challenges, new adventures, and new opportunities to prove that cooperation and courage could overcome any threat the universe might offer. The age of isolation was over. The age of alliance had begun.